Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you might be joining us from. We are so excited to have you here today as we talk about the process for applying for your U.S. student visa. We're going to give it one more minute or so to allow some more folks to join, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here. All right, let's get started to make the most of our time together. So thanks again for joining us. We're so excited to talk with you and really dive into the process of applying for your U.S. student visa. But before we begin, we just want to extend such a warm welcome. These pre-arrival webinars are hosted in partnership with the International Services and Engagement Office, as well as the Division of Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs, also known as GEPA. And we are just so excited to welcome our newest cohort of students. We know that UC San Diego is a very large campus, and you're going to be interacting with many different departments during your time here. But we really pride ourselves on trying to work as collaboratively as possible to support you throughout your student journey. So, welcome. My name is Grace Fuller. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Assistant Director of International Experience and Engagement at the International Services and Engagement Office, also referred to as ISEO. And I'm joined by some wonderful colleagues today who I'll invite to introduce themselves. So I'll hand it over to Marie.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marie Monlapaz, and I'm the Assistant Director for International Student Services at ISEO, International Services and Engagement Office. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to welcoming you soon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mary Hogan. I'm the Director of Graduate Admissions in the Division of Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs. I'll pass it over to my colleague, Shauna.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Shauna Slabiota. I work in graduate education and postdoctoral affairs along with Mary. Just want to say welcome to UC San Diego.
Wonderful. So, a little bit of a snapshot of how we'll spend our time together today. We're going to have some graduate admissions reminders. So, these are really important first steps that you'll do as you accept your admission to UC San Diego. Then we'll spend the bulk of today's webinar focusing on how to apply for your F1 or J1 visa stamp. In case you missed it, our last pre-arrival webinar really focused on how to request your Form I-20 or DS 2019. That is your certificate of eligibility for the F1 or J1 visa. We have that recording available, and I'll drop the link in the chat here soon. But today we'll focus on applying for the visa stamp. Then we'll end with approaching deadlines and reminders, upcoming webinars and additional resources, and as always, we have some dedicated time at the end for open question and answer. A little housekeeping before we begin. So you are in listen only mode, meaning that you can hear us, but unfortunately we can't hear you. So the main way that we'll interact together today is through that Q&A feature on your Zoom menu bar. We'll try to get through as many questions as we can. You're welcome to submit questions at any time. We might hold off on answering some in the event that maybe it's going to be answered during today's content of the presentation, but you can always submit our contact form. And I'll ask my colleague Marie to submit that link in the chat if for some reason we can't get your question answered today. And then finally, we are recording. So inewstudentwebinars.ucsd.edu is a great resource for you. That's where under fall 2026 pre-arrival webinars, you can both view previous webinar recordings, like the one I mentioned, as well as sign up for upcoming webinars. So it's a great one-stop shop for this resource. This is a little snapshot of the control panel, maybe if you haven't used it before. But again, that's how we'll be interacting with our questions today. Okay, so a little bit about our office. In case that this is the first pre-arrival webinar you are joining us for, we are ISEO, the International Services and Engagement Office. The International Services and Engagement Office provides services and engagement opportunities for our entire international community. So at UC San Diego, that includes our international faculty, our research scholars, our staff, our students, and our families. You may not know that we actually have over 10,000 international students at UC San Diego. That includes our students who are currently enrolled as well as working after graduation. We have over 2,000 international faculty and scholars, so that refers to folks who are employed by UC San Diego. We also have over 1,000 international families in the form of spouses and partners, as well as children. And then we also have our entire campus that we work, again, really collaboratively with to support our international community. So we have a service population here of just under 14,000 international community members, and we rank nationally in terms of U.S. institutions hosting international faculty and scholars and hosting international students. And this is a little snapshot into what we do. So, one, we facilitate your pre-arrival and orientation experience. We know that there are so many things involved when it comes to preparing for the next chapter of your life in the US and at UC San Diego. And we really try to offer as many resources as we can to facilitate that process. We also offer advising. So, for our newly admitted students, our pre-arrival webinars are our primary source of advising. As a currently enrolled student, we have drop-in advising, we have virtual advising, and a lot of that is advising focuses on visa and status support services so that you can maintain your immigration status while you're here at UC San Diego. And then, in addition to all of those services, we also offer programs and events because we know that a huge part of your experience is creating a home away from home and finding your community. And we really hope that we can be a connector for you in doing so. And I always like to share a little bit about of who our students are as well. So you can see here, like I mentioned, we have over 8,000 currently enrolled students and over 2,000 students who are working after graduation. We have around 4,000 students each for undergrad students and graduate students. You can see our top majors and our top academic departments. You can also see here our top 10 places of origin. Some countries we have many, many students coming from, which is so exciting. But it's also cool to note that we have over 100 countries represented here at UC San Diego. So you are joining a rich, diverse community, and we are so excited to have you as a part of it. And with that, we just want to welcome you. We know that there is a lot going on in the world, and we are just so excited. We know that you make our community better, you make our community richer, and so welcome. I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues and Gepa for some reminders and first steps.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Grace. So what I'm about to go over should look familiar, but it's really important and will help set you up for success when you get to campus and in preparation of you coming to campus. So a few reminders from the graduate admissions side. The links will be in the chat, but it's really important that you log into your applicant status portal from your application account and view your applicant portal and review any to-dos on your checklist items that are going to make sure that you're all set up for when you join us soon. You'll see here, on the next slide, we are going to have some screenshots of your portal. Again, it should look like, well, I say screenshots of your portal, screenshots of a portal. It won't be your exact portal, but it'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, and I'll review it. It should look familiar. But we want to point out that there may be a statement of legal residence form listed in your to-do items. This form isn't required for all programs, so if it's not listed on your checklist of items to do, no reason to panic whatsoever. But if it is listed, it's important that you complete it. And there will be additional to-do items as well if needed. Most students are provisionally admitted when they are admitted to UC San Diego. So what that means is when you are admitted here, you may recall when you submitted your application that you are not required to submit official transcripts or official degree certificates from previous institutions. But now that you have been admitted and you plan to matriculate to UC San Diego, you are now required to submit any official documents from previous or degrees that you are currently pursuing that you will complete before coming here to UC San Diego. So on your portal, you'll see a pending admissions documents section. And in that section, it will detail exactly what you have to do based on your own academic history to finalize your admission. It's really important that you review this information in your portal because there is a deadline for this information that's listed in your portal. It is not until the fourth Friday of fall quarter. So I know that sounds far away, but it can take some time to collect these required documents, required official documents. Oftentimes, students who attended schools outside the United States might have to, get official English translation documents from their transcripts or degree certificates. So it can take a bit of time. So we really encourage you to go into your portal if you haven't already to review these next steps. And then finally, my team, we're always here to support you. You can email us at gradadmissions@ucsd.edu with any questions whatsoever about your pending admissions documents, and we're happy to go over that information with you. So like I said, on this next slide, we're going to see an example applicant status portal. So again, not your exact portal, but yours should look something like this. So we're just going over the Home tab and then the Your Checklist Items tab on the right-hand side. These are the two tabs that you are going to interact with the most. However, there are Program Information tab, Financial Support tab, and an FAQs tab as well. That's with like commonly asked questions that you might find helpful. So on the left-hand side, you'll see your status. So if you've accepted your offer of admission, it should say accepted. That means you've accepted your offer. And then you'll also see some important links there below. The what to do immediately page is very important. I would recommend going through every single hyperlinked tab here. So the what to do immediately, before you arrive on campus, when you arrive on campus, and international students. So there's a lot of really good and rich information on those websites. It's going to be helpful for you to review. And then you'll see this forms section. So on this particular example, this student, they've completed these forms. And so that's why you see a little green check mark. So the decision reply form is what you filled out to accept your offer of admission. And then again, like we said on the last slide, if you do have a statement of legal residence form required, it will show up here. And there will be a red X next to it if you have not yet submitted it. And there will be a green check mark next to it if you do submit it, or already have submitted, I should say. Again, if that form doesn't show up on your applicant status portal, there's no other additional steps that you need to take for that form in particular. And then on the right-hand side, we'll see the Your Checklist Items tab. This is a really important tab. It has a lot of information. You may have additional details that you'll scroll down and see. This is specific to your personal academic history. So what shows on this screenshot is not what will show on yours necessarily, but you'll see the header required document, and then it'll tell you based on your academic history exactly what you need to submit. So in this student's case, they needed to submit an official transcript with degree conferral information, so showing when they earned their degree from the University of Pittsburgh. Yours may list that you need to submit a WES or evaluation from the evaluation company document. So it will detail exactly what you need to submit based on your academic history. It will also detail the deadline, and then below it will go into specifics on how to actually submit what is required of you. So for students who complete a degree outside of the United States, we do require an international academic evaluation. And the two companies that we work with, and again, this is all detailed in your portal, the two companies that UC San Diego works with is WES and TEC, the evaluation company. So if those are evaluations that you are required to submit, it will be detailed here. And then under the How to Submit header, it will detail exactly how to submit those evaluations, links to each company, so you can review the different requirements for each company. You are not required to submit a evaluation from both. You just pick which one if this is a requirement for you. And then again, it'll show how to actually go in and create an account and take your steps to complete that requirement. So again, it's very, very important that you get started on these steps to finalize your admission. We'll go over it again later in this presentation, but you are not required to wait to finalize your admission to start other processes on campus. So you can be working on finalizing your admission while also working on the visa process and anything else. But we really want to emphasize that the sooner that you start submitting these documents, the more time you'll have to work on making sure everything's finalized in plenty of time. So another quick note, just in case you get started on this tomorrow and you're able to get your documents into us in a very short amount of time, our team is not going to start evaluating official documents until June. So if you start submitting any documents or an evaluation from previous degrees and you submit it to our office and you don't get the notification that your admission has been finalized, there's no need to panic. Our team, we're still in the process of working on reviewing applicants who are being admitted for fall 26. And so that's our focus right now. And then in June, we will shift to finalizing admission. And again, if you have any questions whatsoever, you can email us at gradadmissions@ucsd.edu. And then the final little note that I'll make is please make sure before you submit any of these documents that every single official document that you are requesting has your degree conferral on it. So if you are currently enrolled in an undergraduate program or another graduate program, and you will not yet have graduated from those programs until, say, May or June or July, don't submit those official documents until you have completed the degree, because they will be considered incomplete until you have that degree conferral information. So again, any questions that you have whatsoever, email us at gradadmissions@ucsd.edu. That contact information is in the chat, and it's also in your applicant status portal. Thanks, everyone.
Hey, so today we're going to go over how to apply for your US visa for F1 and J1 students and talk about the visa process. As noted in our last webinar, ICO divides the visa process into 6 steps. In our last webinar, we reviewed step 1 of the visa process and obtaining your I-20 or DS 2019 from ISCO. You will need your I-20 to apply for your F1 visa stamp or your DS 2019 to apply for your J1 visa before moving forward with the visa process. In order to get this process started, you will need to ensure you have access to iservices.ucsd.edu, and you can locate this information at inewstudent.ucsd.edu and refer to the submitting a request for your immigration document Form I-20 or DS 2019. Again, please note that due to the update with the Triton student system, you'll receive information on how to log into your account within the next few weeks. Grace has provided this information in the Q&A chat. So today we will cover steps 2 to 4 of the visa process. That includes scheduling your visa interview and attending the visa interview, to receiving your visa stamp, and then planning for your travel and arrival to the US. So all of the information we will review today can be found at inewdegreestudent.ucsd.edu under step 1 and applying for your F1 or J1 visa stamp. For today, we're going to focus as much as you can on understanding the big picture of the visa process. ISCO has done all the steps for you to have this checklist, and you can find it at our website. So the next step is scheduling your visa interview after you've obtained your I-20 or DS 2019. There are 2 critical pieces of this step, and that's submitting your DS 160 and paying the CVIS I-901 fee. The DS 160 is the online application for your non-immigrant visa. This includes the MRV fee, the machine readable visa fee, which typically is $185, and you can go to the usembassy.gov to check your local US Embassy or consulate's website for more instructions on applying for the non-immigrant visa. This includes payment instructions as well. And you go to usembassy.gov. We recommend when you're preparing all your required documents and information ahead of time, per the instructions on the US Embassy or consulate's website. Make sure you have your passport, your Form I-20 or DS 2019 with you, and note that it can take about 1 or 2 hours to complete this application for the DS 160 if you have all your documents gathered in advance. So this is your Form I-20 or DS 2019. You'll want to have these documents available to you. And the DS 160 application will also ask for your CVIS ID number. You'll find that in the top left-hand corner for the F1 and the top right-hand corner for the DS 2019. And then they'll ask you for your field of study and your zip code. This is your major field of study. It may differ from your actual major name at UC San Diego, and this is okay. This is the government's equivalent to your major. Next, then you'll include your school contacts information. Please use the name of your advisor listed on your Form I-20 or DS 2019. You can also use this number and the email address, but remember, all of this information can be found at step 1 on inewdegreestudent.ucsd.edu. You'll submit your DS-160 online non-immigrant visa application and print the confirmation page with this barcode. This is a really important step. Note that you will be required to bring your printed copy to your visa interview. Following the successful submission of your DS-160, you will then be able to schedule your visa interview pending appointment availability. So to schedule your visa interview, you will need to pay the SEVIS I-901 fee. We recommend paying this fee at least 3 business days before your visa interview. This will be required anytime you receive a new SEVIS ID number. That is, if you are issued a new initial F1 or J1 document. For F1 students, this typically is $350, and for J1 students, it's typically $220. Again, make sure to print the confirmation receipt page, and you will be required to bring this printed copy to your visa interview. You can learn more at fmjfee.com. For citizens of Canada and Bermuda, you're not required to apply for an F1 or J1 visa stamp. However, you still must have a valid Form I-20 or DS 2019 to seek entry into the US, and you must pay your I-901 fee. So you may not require a visa stamp to enter the US, but you do need to have an I-20 or DS 2019 issued by ISEO and pay your I-901 SEVIS fee. For more information, you can go to the US Department of State's website at travel.state.gov and search Citizens of Canada and Bermuda. Once you've submitted the DS-160 and scheduled the visa interview and paid the SEVIS fee, you will have completed step 2 of the visa process. Step 3 is to attend your visa interview. Many students focus on obtaining the I-20 as quickly as possible. I see in the chat that many students are waiting to receive their I-20s or DS 2019s, and we're here to support you at ISEO. So the next step is the most critical component of this entire process of obtaining your visa, which is largely depends on the visa interview process. Please do not underestimate the importance of preparation needed for the visa process. So what you'll need to bring to your visa interview are your passport that's valid at least 6 months into the future from your program start date, your Form I-20 or DS 2019. This is your checklist, your DS-160 confirmation page with the barcode and proof of payment for your visa fee, and the SEVIS I-901 fee. You'll also need to bring your passport photo if you're unable to upload it as part of your DS-160 and proof of funding documentation. You'll also need to show ties to your home country to show that you have non-immigrant intent for the F1 or J1 non-immigrant visa. What to bring? We always encourage students to check their local embassy or consulate's website for a complete list of documents you should bring, as other documents may be required or recommended depending on your specific embassy or consulate. Visa officers have thoroughly reviewed your application prior to your scheduled visa interview. They already know, and you want to, what are the documents in your application? So you want to be prepared to expand on what they already know about your application. So the officers will have looked at your application history, if you have any other applications that were filed in your name previously, if you've had any visa refusals previously. They'll look at your DS-160 responses, whether or not you have family members in the United States, and they'll also be watching your body language, actually. So make sure that you're friendly, relaxed, and answer all their questions. If there's any complications in your history, they may know about any encounters with law enforcement, or if you previously had stopped attending school at another university or had any interactions with US Customs. You'll want to be ready to answer any questions that the officer has. Note that these interviews are typically pretty quick, about 3 minutes long, so just be prepared. It is likely you will encounter some variation of the question, why are you traveling to the US? And or where are you planning to study in the US? Remember, it's your responsibility to establish why you're qualified for the F-1 J1 visa. And the first question about the visa interview generally is your opportunity to introduce your qualifications for the visa that you have applied for to the visa officer. So here are some tips that we've prepared. Before your interview, please practice your introduction as if you're explaining your situation and travel plans to a stranger who you may have never met. Be comfortable answering variations of that question of what are your plans, um, why are you traveling to the US, and where are you planning to study. Be comfortable in answering these questions, but don't memorize your answer. Use the tips listed on the screen to guide and gauge your practice. Another helpful tip we have is NAFSA is an organization for international educators that has some 10 tips for remembering how to apply for your student visa. And I'll have, yes, thank you, Grace, has added that in the chat. So, in addition, during your visa interview, the visa officer will be looking at your sources of funding, how you will pay for all your educational, living, and travel costs. If you've received a scholarship or fellowship, either from UC San Diego or a different sponsor, and you should mention that. If you're being supported by family or friends, you should be prepared to explain the relationship of how and why they support you. And you'll need to show ties to your home country, evidence that support your non-immigrant intent, meaning you intend to depart the United States upon completion of your course of study, and what connections or obligations you have at home to make it likely that you'll return to your home country once you've completed your study. So remember, the visa interview goes pretty quickly. Be brief and maintain a positive attitude. Be ready to talk to the consular officer. It's a short conversation with you. Even if the consular officer speaks to you in a different language, please respond in English. Know this information and be prepared. Know your program of study and its connection to long-term career goals, and talk about your funding and your ties to your home country. The visa officers can also inquire about online activity, including but not limited to your social media accounts. Please be mindful of your digital presence to ensure it's compliant with all visa and immigration regulations. This is a new requirement that just was created last year. Visa delays and administrative processing. Of course, the hope is that everything goes smoothly, fingers crossed, and that the visa will be approved and issued quickly. But there are sometimes things when things don't go always as planned. The first possible potential visa delay is called administrative processing, or AP. Administrative processing occurs when a visa officer needs more time or information before making a decision on your visa application. If your application is placed in AP, you will typically receive a 221G letter indicating your visa is temporarily refused pending further review. Unfortunately, this process is not transparent and can take several weeks to months to process. So what to expect? AP is required security clearance by the U.S. Department of State. Processing times vary and cannot be expedited. Please note that ISEO has no authority in influencing the visa issuance if your application is placed under administrative processing. Your 221G notice may list additional documents or instructions, and you can find more information on the U.S. Department of State's website under administrative processing. So, as mentioned, since mid-2025, U.S. consulates are required expanded mandatory social media screening of all FN1J applicants, resulting in more AP cases, administrative processing cases. With this new screening, applicants must show all of your social media platforms and your usernames, use them the past 5 years. Your profiles must be set to public, and private or limited access accounts may trigger administrative processing. So please make sure that your social media accounts are up to date and available for public view. Many applicants will automatically receive a temporary 221G letter for further review. Officers then assess the content for security concerns. Unfortunately, these reviews can cause significant visa delays, so much as you're able to, please ensure all your online profiles are complete, accurate, and publicly visible to avoid any delays. Finally, while visa denials are rare, they can happen. Hopefully, they don't. Usually, visa denials under 214B are because the visa officer did not find strong ties to your home country and reasons to return, or your prior academic records make the visa officer question your pursuit of a student visa. And what I've mentioned is not exhaustive. They may have other reasons, but they point to a visa officer finding that your intended activities are inconsistent with the visa class you've applied for, a non-immigrant student F/J1 visa. So the visa officer must believe that you're coming to the United States to come here and study. You're coming to study at UC San Diego and that you have every intention of returning home after your program of study. That is why the visa is called a non-immigrant visa. Phew, so that was a lot of information, I know, for steps 2 and 3. Pat yourself on the back. Step 3 is complete. Hopefully, next step is you receive your visa stamp in your passport and you plan to travel to the US. So obtaining your visa stamp, the consular officer will then collect your passport. It could take 1 to 2 weeks to produce and affix the visa stamp in your passport. Ask the consular officer how you will receive your passport back. They may mail it to you or they may provide you pickup options. So now you have the documents required to seek entry into the US. Customs will require your passport that's valid for 6 months after your program start date and your Form I-20 or DS 2019 printed in your and hand signed. Remember, you do have to print and hand sign your Form I-20 or DS 2019. You'll need to carry that with you when you enter the US and have your F1 or J1 visa stamp in your passport. Booking your travel to the United States, you need to get your visa first. We know you are really excited to join us here at UC San Diego and come to the US, but we strongly recommend that you wait to purchase your travel until after you have your visa stamp and that you have flexible flights that are refundable. So booking your travel to the US, there's a 30-day entry rule for F1 and J1 students. You may enter the US no more than 30 days to the prior start of your program start date listed on your Form I-20 or DS 2019. F1 students look at the earliest admission date filed on your Form I-20. And for our J1 students, look at the form covers period box here on your DS 2019 and calculate 30 days prior to the form from date that is listed on your document. So booking your travel to the US, please plan for extra time at the US port of entry. We recommend, like, if you have connecting flights, to schedule 2 to 3 hours between your connecting flights or when crossing a land border to allow for CVIS status verifications at customs in case there are delays. So congrats, step 4 is done, and that is the visa process for applying for your visa, the visa interview, receiving your visa stamp, and then planning to travel in the US. A quick recap of the visa status. As a reminder, steps 1 through 3 were covered in detail on our website at inewdegreestudent.ucsd.edu, and you can use this as a checklist for when you apply for your Form I-20 or DS 2019, and also for your F1 or J1 visa stamp. Step 4 is covered on our website under Prepare for your arrival to UC San Diego. And finally, steps 5 and 6 are covered under Arrival to the US and UC San Diego. We've covered a lot of information today, but please remember this webinar is being recorded and we will post it to inewstudentwebinars.ucsd.edu, so you can always go back and refer to it there. It will take about a week or so or two for us to have our webinar, but the slides will be posted as well for your access. So now I will pass it on to my colleague Grace to share about some engagement opportunities at UC San Diego.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Shauna. Yeah, so I'm going to share a little bit about things that you can look forward to be involved here during your time at UC San Diego, as well as some things that are relevant to you right now. So the first is our iNew Students newsletter. So we know that there have been delays with the TSS system at UC San Diego, which has really limited our ability to connect with our incoming population. So with that, please email iprograms@ucsd.edu if you are not currently receiving these newsletters. You should have received one yesterday, letting you know about today's webinar as well as on Thursday. And because these webinars really feature critical information, so we try to send you the information you need when you need it. These webinars are timely and really help guide you as you prepare to come to UC San Diego on an F1 or a J1 visa. We also have a list of guides. We know that students intake information in a myriad of ways, and so the guides are really meant to kind of break down this process for you. And so we have two guides that I want to highlight. One is our welcome guide that has a checklist of things that you can be doing right now, things that you can do to prepare for arrival, and steps you need to take upon arrival. So that is our welcome guide. And then the other guide I like to always highlight is our surf check guide. That includes a guide that was created for students by students, and it features the most frequently asked questions that our new international students have, whether that be arranging transportation from the airport or setting up a US bank account or a phone account, all the different questions that come with starting a new chapter in a new country. So I put the link in the chat where you can access our guides and highly recommend you check them out. Finally, I also want to feature our Grad Pals peer mentorship program. So this is a really cool program. It matches our incoming international graduate students with currently enrolled graduate students. As you fill out the form, you can kind of note which ones are most important to you to be matched, which criteria is most important to you to be matched on, whether it be maybe from the same home country or maybe the same program of study, etc. And so I highly recommend take a take a screenshot. I'll try to put some links in the chat. But many students say this was like one of the most beneficial processes as they were coming to UC San Diego, having a peer that they could just ask all their questions to, I think was really helpful. And so I highly recommend checking out our Grad Pals peer mentorship program for our graduate students. And then finally, if you're curious about the signature programs we offer, iprograms.ucsd.edu is a great way to get familiar with our signature program. So that includes our Global Coffee Hour, our English in Action Conversation program, our Triton Trekkers program, where we explore the beautiful backyard of San Diego, game night, craft event, ISAC, or International Student Advisory Council. So as you can see, there's so many different touch points for you to be involved here during your time at UC San Diego. Whether you're involved with our office or you're involved in another place on campus, just being a part of this community is a huge part of your experience here. And then so iPrograms gives you a great overview of the different types of programs we offer. iEvents is our live events calendar. So I know many students will bookmark this page, and if they're like, oh my gosh, like what's coming up? Like what can I do this weekend? What can I do this week? This is a great way to stay up to date on everything that we're offering. And then finally, a lot of students really like to follow us on Instagram, mostly because it kind of gives them just like a snapshot into kind of student life at UC San Diego through the lens of an international student. So if you want to kind of start to like see like what might my life be like, what are the coffee shops I might study at? What are the places I might watch the sunset? All of those different things. It's a great way to start to kind of engage and kind of envision yourself here. So feel free to give us a follow. Okay, so some additional resources before we switch to open question and answer. There's a few things that you can begin doing now. I know that some of you have reached out, and with the delays in the Triton student system, there have been delays in being able to request your Form I-20 and DS 2019. We understand that these documents are so important. We trust me, we understand how important these documents are, and know that we are doing everything in our ability to get you access to request these documents as soon as possible. So please know that we are working behind the scenes to make this happen. That being said, it may be an additional 2 to 3 weeks before we can send you that email. So, right now, we are advising patience. I will encourage you that you're here. You are, many of you have said, I've already prepared my funding requirements. I've already prepared my required supporting documents. You are in a good place. So, you're being proactive, you're doing what you need to do, and at this point, it's the most important thing is to exercise patience. And I'll also just note of it's never a bad idea to do another once over of your funding requirements. Sometimes we submit a term deposit that doesn't explicitly state a maturity date. And so making sure that it meets all of the criteria outlined on our website is a really important step to make sure that once you can request these documents, that process goes smoothly. Something else that we want you to think about doing is housing and applying for housing. So on Thursday, we are going to have campus partners join us to talk about housing at UC San Diego. We'll talk about on-campus housing, we'll talk about off-campus housing, we'll talk about additional housing resources. So that is a really critical piece that's a part of your student journey here, and we're excited for you to join us. Note that it's around mid-May that if you do decide to live on campus, that's when Housing, Dining, and Hospitality, often referred to as HDH, starts to send out the housing contracts. It's also important to keep in mind that those housing offers are made 60 days prior to the requested move-in date, so that can fluctuate depending on when you actually want to move in. In July is the deadline to submit your required health immunization forms. And next week, we'll have our colleagues from Student Health join us to talk about required immunization as well as required insurance. So that's going to be a really critical webinar to join us for. I know that can be really confusing. And so to have the opportunity to ask questions live of our experts is going to be really helpful. And then September is an exciting time. There's so much happening. That's when you're moving in, that's when you're checking in, that's when we'll have orientation. So there's just a lot going on in September. That's when we often get to meet you all face to face. We've been interacting with you for months virtually, and so it's a really exciting time for us to be able to finally meet the students that we've been engaging with. So we look forward to welcoming you in September. Okay, so up on the screen, you can see our upcoming webinars. So like I said, UC San Diego is a massive campus, right? We're a large university. There's a lot of different offices on our campus. There's a lot of different departments. There is no way that we can specialize in everything. And so instead, our approach is to work collaboratively. So one of the purposes of these pre-arrival webinars is to really work with different folks across campus to feature topics that we know are important to you. So we'll work with housing folks to host our housing webinar. We'll work with health folks to host our health webinar. And then you can see we have a webinar on funding and graduate student funding, how you might fund your program. If you want to be a TA or a teaching assistant, we'll have an English language requirement webinar. Student life and getting involved, campus safety, getting set up, transferring your CVIS record. So there's so much good content here. I highly recommend that you go to inewstudentwebinars.ucsd.edu. This is where you're going to be able to review any previous webinar recordings as well as sign up for future webinars. So that's a really great resource, and that can be found under Fall 2026 pre-arrival webinars. Okay, wonderful. So we will now transition to open question and answer. I know that we have been busy answering as many questions as we can via the Zoom Q&A. So thank you to my colleagues for their support there. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look at some of the questions that have recently come in. But while I'm kind of reviewing those questions, I would love to open the floor to any of my co-presenters. If there's any questions that you think would benefit a large group of students as like a friendly reminder or things like that, please feel free to share. Actually, I see one question that I would love to answer live. Okay. So one of the submitted questions reads, regarding the maturity period for term deposits. So this is a great question. It's asking about your funding documents, and it's asking about financial documents that are term deposits. Would it be acceptable if I provide a bank certificate stating that the deposits can be withdrawn at any time? I ask because the maturity dates for some of the deposits are beyond my program start date, but they can still be drawn at any time without restriction. Yes, 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 yes. Please, if you are submitting term deposits, with that documentation needs to be either an explicitly stated that it's either the maturity date is before the start of the term or the deposits can be withdrawn at any time without penalty. Those are the two things that we look for when we accept term deposits as a part of your funding documents. If it doesn't state one of those two things, that either the maturity date is before the start of term or they can be withdrawn at any time, we cannot accept those financial documents. So it's very important that if you are going to submit term deposits as a part of your funding requirements, that it states um, that it can be withdrawn at any time or the maturity date is before the start of term. So thank you for that question. That's a really good question. I'm sure I've said this many times, but one of the most common reasons that students face delays when processing the Form I-20 or the DS-2019 is issues with the funding documents. So the more closely you can pay attention to detail now and reviewing your funding documents, the better. And I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat again. But thank you for this question. Okay, we have another question about funding documents, and honestly, I love it because again, it's an important topic. So this question reads, for the I-20, will the stipend letter I received via email be sufficient as proof of funding for the PhD program? Additionally, I can also provide my bank balance statement and term deposit documents if required. Okay, so I obviously don't have your stipend letter in front of me. I don't know exactly what it says. But assuming it meets our amounts required for your specific program, that's going to be the most important piece, right? So we are going to look at and maybe I might share screen for a second. Shauna, I might take over screen sharing. So as processors, I'm on our funding requirements webpage. And here's where it looks at how much funding do you need to show.
Grace, I'm
Oh,
not sure if we can see your screen. Let me
oh, thank you. Here, let
stop.
me try to
Oh,
read
I can
share.
see it.
oh, okay. Maybe it was just me then.
Okay. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is where it goes into acceptable sources of funding. So this is when we're going to talk about personal funds versus term deposits versus loan certificates, like all of those funding support letters from your department, right? Including scholarships and fellowships. So this is a really helpful chart. I highly recommend you pay attention to this in great, great detail. And then what we're also going to do is we're going to check based on your program, what is the amount required? So for a PhD program, we're generally going to look, is it meeting the funding requirement of that $73,507? Now, provided your stipend letter covers that amount, that's great. If you're nervous or if it doesn't quite, then I would recommend combining and submitting as one compiled PDF, maybe your bank statement and any term deposit documents, provided that they can be withdrawn at any time or the maturity date is before the start of term, as one combined PDF. Now, with that, I would ask, please do not submit a funding PDF that's like 20 pages long. That will also slow down the processing of your request. Usually, like, try to submit summary documents. So, like, looking at like 3 pages, at most 5 pages. But we, as you can imagine, are processing thousands of documents during the pre-arrival season. And so the more streamlined it can be, the faster we can be in processing those requests. So please go ahead. And if it doesn't cover that amount or you're nervous that it might not, yes, combine it with a bank statement, combine it with a term deposit, provided it meets our qualifications. But please limit all funding requirement documents to like a combined PDF of maybe like 3 to 5 pages. For our sake, please limit the 20 to 50 page documents. Okay, this is a good question. So, if you have already submitted the request for the Form I-20, but your funding requirements do not explicitly state that they can be withdrawn at any time, you should submit our contact form. So, I am going to go to my contact, email, general inquiries, and I'm going to submit our contact form. Okay, so I'm going to put this link in the chat. This is our contact form. So you're going to fill out this information, and then you're going to say, I'm a newly admitted student. I have a question about iServices. And you're going to say iServices technical support. And then you're going to list, I've submitted my request for my I-20. I uploaded my funding requirements, but it doesn't explicitly state that they can be withdrawn at any time. This will allow us to set your application to draft status so that you can go in and update your funding requirements to include documentation that they can be withdrawn at any time. That's going to be really important. So go in, submit this contact form. We'll reset your form to draft status so that you can upload updated funding documentation. And again, for all of you who are waiting to receive that request, let this be a friendly and gentle reminder to make sure that even if you've prepared all your funding documents, the funding documents are complete and correct, and any term deposits can be withdrawn at any time. And that it explicitly states that. But please know you are not alone. That's a very common experience. Okay, so one question asks, my parents have term deposits, but my loan covers the amount required. Is it okay if I just submit my loan sanction letter? So yeah, again, I'm not looking at your funding requirements document, so I can't speak to this with certainty. But in theory, if your loan letter covers the amount required, then that should be sufficient. If you would like to submit the term deposits just to quell any anxiety in your heart, you're more than welcome to do that. They would need to say that can be withdrawn at any time or they're going to be available before the start of term. But yes, in theory, if your loan letter meets our required amounts, and it also it's available in English, it indicates your name and the approved amount of the loan. Um, Ideally, no conditional loan approvals. The only conditional loan approvals we can accept is if the only condition is the receipt of your I-20 and DS 2019. And please note that loan applications are not accepted as proof of funding. So if it's a loan application, that will not be accepted. But if it's a loan letter saying that the loan has been approved and it lists your name and the approved amount, and that covers the amount required, then we should be able to accept that. Okay, we have time for one more question and then we're going to have to wrap for today, but we'll see you on Thursday, okay? If I break my term deposit so that the funds are now in a savings account before sending the funding deposit, will that be acceptable or will there be any issue with this? Okay, so provided I am understanding your question correctly, if you decide to transfer your funds from a term deposit account to a savings account, which would fall under personal funds, checking or savings account statement, that should work, right? We can accept that as a proof of funding. Now, again, that document needs to be available in English. For our sake, please have it be a concise 1 to 2 page document. We do not need a long statement that's like 7, 10, 20 pages long. Um, you can have statements for multiple accounts. Online banking is totally fine. It should indicate the financial institution's name. It should indicate the account holder's name. It should clearly show the account balance. And it should be dated within the last 3 months. That's another important thing, is that it should be within the last 3 months. So please pay attention to that. It should clearly show the type of currency, and it should be clear that it's liquid assets that can either be converted into cash or already the cash. But yes, if your term deposit statement does not say that it has a maturity date before the start of term or that can be withdrawn with any time, then in general it is going to be safer to transfer that into a savings account. Um, and then we can accept that documentation. These are great questions. I am so glad you are asking these questions now because these are the questions, these are the reasons why we often have to put a application in incomplete status, ask you to make updates, ask you to make corrections. And so the fact that you all are asking these questions now means that we can more quickly process your request. So thank you for your engagement. Thank you for your questions. We are at the end of our time together today. So if you have any additional questions, please submit our contact form and we will see you on Thursday. The feature of that webinar is going to be housing, both on campus and off campus, but we'll be here to answer any other questions you might have. So thank you and have a great, oh, one last thing. For the recording of these webinars, we do ask, usually it takes our team about 1 to 2 weeks to post them on our website. We do try to be as quick as possible. So as you can see, the webinar from last Thursday is already up there, less than a week. Wow. So we do try to work very hard to get this information. We know how important this information is. So it's generally we ask for 1 to 2 weeks, but know that we are working as hard as we can in the background to get you that information. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day and take care.